What you're saying is that you think the job was done internally, helped by some of your fellow Secret Service members.
If any organization or person tried to assassinate the president, it would be successful.
And this led to you going to prison. You think a part of that was because John F. Kennedy was pushing a little bit too much?
We're talking about the presidency of the United States. When we deny that respect to our top officials, we're finished. I think that if left alone, that Trump would make a great president.
Today I have the privilege of sitting down with the first ever African-American Secret Service agent, which John F. Kennedy called the Jackie Robinson of Secret Service agents back in the day. So, Abraham Bolden, thank you so much, sir, for taking the time and being here with us.
Yes.
Appreciate you. So, why don't we go back to your transition of where you went from what you were doing, and people were watching what a great job you were doing, where they said, hey, why don't we bring him in to become a Secret Service agent with the president?
And on October the 30th of 1960, under President Eisenhower, I became a Secret Service agent and left the Illinois State Police. And during that process, I attended the Treasury School in Washington, D.C., and President Kennedy at that time had been elected president, and he beat Nixon here in Cook County by some 8,000 votes. They tell me 7,000 of them were in the graveyard, but that's what happened. Mayor Daley had a political machine here that you couldn't beat him. And so I was stationed here in Chicago as a new Secret Service agent, and on April 28th of 1961, President Kennedy was coming to Chicago in order to thank Mayor Daley and his political associates and aldermen for getting out to vote for him. Mm-hmm. And being a new agent, they gave me an assignment which was very low, you might say, and they put me in the washroom. Now, something else factored into that also, and that was a racial issue, because the first schedule called for me to be upstairs in the convention hall near the door where President Kennedy was supposed to enter. They took that position away from me, and they put Chicago policemen there. They gave me the position downstairs in front of the washroom, and you can imagine what problem a plainclothes Secret Service agent would be standing in front of a washroom telling people of another race you can't go in. It was a very complicated assignment for me. But anyway, about 8:30 p.m., the president drove up. His motorcade came up, stopped in front of McCormick Place. I heard all the commotion on the upper level. And I was trying to get a chance to see the president. If I could just see his shoes or whatever, it would have been enlightening for me.
Were you a Kennedy fan
yes.
at the time? So you were a Kennedy fan.
Yes, I was a Kennedy fan 100%, as was many of the people of the black race were for President Kennedy, because he presented a sincerity and a program that we really believed in. We thought that he would be the best president to carry out the program that he had announced for us. He came across as a man who was for justice for all people. When the motorcade pulled up, as I said, I was straining, trying to look up the steps to see the president. But I couldn't from the position where I was, and I was very disappointed at that. But as it so happened, the first thing that the president wanted to do when he came to McCormick Place was use the washroom. And as I looked up the steps for about the 10th time, here comes President Kennedy leading the whole entourage of every big-time politician in Chicago. Everybody wanted to be next to the president, have the picture taken with the president. The president walked down the steps, and there I am standing in front of the washroom, and he stopped right in front of me. And he looked me in the eye, and he smiled. And he said, are you a Secret Service agent? Are you one of Mayor Daley's finest? I said, I'm a Secret Service agent, Mr. President. And one of the other agents, Richard Jordan, said, that's Abraham Bolden. And the president looked at me and said, Mr. Bolden, and he called me that from then on.
Wow.
Mr. Bolden, he says, has there ever been a Negro on the White House detail in Washington, D.C.? I said, not to my knowledge, Mr. President. And he looked at, and we were shaking hands at the time. He looked at me and his eyes were smiling, a really legitimate, sincere smile.
Great.
You just could see you can see a smile. The president said, would you like to be the first? I said, yes, sir, Mr. President. He said, I'll be looking forward to seeing you in Washington, D.C. And man, I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it.
Were you shell-shocked?
I was worse than shell-shocked, man. I didn't know how to take it. And so when the president went in the washroom, he came back out. We shook hands again, and he said, I'll be looking forward to seeing you now soon. I said, thank you, Mr. President. President Kennedy treated me royally, introduced me to the members of his family. He made it possible for me to ride on a yacht, and he fed me when we took a ride on the yacht on July the 3rd of 1961. I was sitting there in a seat on the back of the yacht, Marlin. So the Navy man came out, said the president would like for you to have lunch. To acknowledge me. Now, I'm from a dirt poor East St. Louis, Illinois, and here the president of the United States says, Mr. Bolden, when the yacht landed, when we decked, Bobby Kennedy came out to meet, and we had a long conversation, the three of us. The president asked me, what did I intend to do? Did I want to remain in the Secret Service? Bobby Kennedy solicited me first. He said, you should come into the FBI. We need some more Negro agents. And I told the president that I would like to someday become a diplomat to some African country.
Interesting.
He said, Mr. Bolden, he said, I promise you, if you will go to a Burlitz School of Languages in Chicago, learn an African dialect, I don't care what it is. He says, I'll be around 6 more years or more.
He said that?
Yeah, he said that, yeah.
I'll be around 6 more years.
6 more years or more.
Not knowing what's going to happen.
Yeah, not knowing what's going to happen.
Now,
he said, I'll see that you meet your goal.
Got it. So how long was your actual assignment with the president?
Well, I stayed there about 32 days.
32 days was yours?
Yeah.
So then you come back to Chicago.
Came back to Chicago and became a field agent again. You know what some of the agents would say? When they would have a riot down in Mississippi or in Arkansas somewhere, agents I'm talking about, they would say, that bastard need to be killed. I'm talking about agents made that statement. I heard an agent make that statement that the president should be killed. So when Inspector Kelly came to Chicago on the regular inspection duties, I explained to him and complained to him that the president's life is in jeopardy. He's going to be assassinated. But nobody would listen. And in November of 1963, the FBI called the Secret Service office and says that we have information that Cubans are set up in Chicago and there's going to be an assassination attempt on the life of the president. The call came in late October of 1963. The agents, first Mr. Martineau says, well, we don't have enough agents to go around. Now, the president was supposed to come here. During the investigation of these so-called Cubans, the Secret Service in the Chicago district messed up the investigation and we had to abort. And how did they mess it up? Because one of the agents called J. Lord Stock, we had the Cubans under observation. J. Lord Stock drives down the alley as one of the Cubans are loading some guns in the trunk of the car. And he's got his radio wide open. And when he passes the car, Mr. Martineau is on the microphone. I'm listening. Where are they now? The guys took off. Now, this is the case that the Secret Service denies ever happened. They denied it happened. But Mary Farrell, doing research after the president was assassinated, found out that there was a man named Sierra. He came from Michigan to Chicago, and this was in 1963, and he was a gun runner. So it all matched up. Now, the reason that it had to be aborted was because the Secret Service filed up. I knew that something strange was about to happen. What they wanted to do, he called me in the office of the Treasury Department and said, we want you to go undercover. We're going to change your name, going to give you a new name. We're going to pull all your birth certificate out of East St. Louis, Illinois, and there would be no more Abraham Bolden. I had to look at myself. I thought about myself in imagination. Do I look that crazy? That I've been complaining, and I'm going to I hear the threats on the president, and I'm going to let somebody change my name, remove my birth certificate from Spring, and I can't prove who I am? No, man, they must have seen me coming. I rejected the assignment. Now, in the meantime, we had an investigation going on in Chicago involving Echeverria. Echeverria said without any qualification, President Kennedy is about to be assassinated. Echeverria was a member of the DRE, and we had been investigating the DRE. Echeverria was also a gun runner. And this was late October. We had an informant right next to Echeverria.
Didn't he get caught with like 1,000 rounds or something like that he had in the car?
That was Valley.
That's Valley, yes.
Arthur Valley.
Yeah.
Got caught with 1,000 rounds. Now, we could not absolutely associate Valley with the Cubans. We don't know if he was just a lone nut trying to carry out some plot himself.
So you you weren't able to connect the two together, whether there was an affiliation?
No, they never connected the two of them together. But here we have an organization, and Echeverria, Homer Echeverria, is a member of the organization. He says that the president's about to be assassinated. On November the 22nd, I'm standing at 31st and Indiana inside a tavern, and over the little black and white TV, it said, President Kennedy has just been assassinated. He's been shot. So I hurried back to the office, mad as hell, because I saw it coming. And nobody took any precautions. I guess they just figured that I was a nut. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. They didn't believe it. They didn't believe the vision that I had seen when I was in D.C. on the 18th. They just thought I was a nut because I was telling them that when I looked at the White House, there was a cloud on the floor of the residence where the president was living. And I could not see to the top of the White House. And I took off my glasses, I cleaned them, I looked at Lafayette Park, I could see just as clear, but every time I looked at the White House, there was a cloud. And I took that to mean that something was up, that President Kennedy was going to be assassinated. In the meantime, when I get back to Chicago, now we had the Cuban organization in Chicago. There's a report of a right-wing organization headed by Miltier. He has a conversation with another one of our informants in Miami, and this is in the record book. He says that the president is about to be assassinated and explains how it's going to be done with a high-powered rifle in a warehouse building.
How long before the actual event?
About 2 weeks.
2 weeks before the event?
2 weeks before the event.
In Dallas or Chicago? Was the prediction that that's going to be in Dallas?
He didn't say where it was going to be, but this was the way they're going to set up. I had it figured that they had hit teams. This is the way that professional assassins work. They work in teams. They don't just have you, and you following the president around. They'll have a team in Dallas, a team in Chicago, and you don't know the team in Dallas. Mm-hmm. They may send you to Dallas and tell you you're going to be part of a team to kill the president when there might be 5 other guys shooting it you don't even know. That's the way that they work.
So what you're saying is, because you know there's a lot of conspiracies,
Yeah.
a lot of them, and you
Yeah.
probably read all of them because you were
Yes.
participating in this. So,
Yeah.
and this led to you going to prison. They got you on
It
a
did,
counterfeiting
right.
case for you accepting $50,000, and I think you did time for 39 months. It was 6 years, but you did 39 months and 2.5 years of
3 years
probation, and then
3
you were
months,
gone.
right.
Yeah. So, but before that part, if we focus on the conspiracy side, I have a friend of mine that I interviewed on Valuetainment. He was a former capo. He was a made man in the La Cosa Nostra family. It's an Italian mafia family, and he said unequivocally, he is 100% certain that the folks that killed John F. Kennedy, it was tied to the Italian mob, that they were involved. Now, how they were involved is a different story, but he's saying that's who was involved.
They never want it to be known that the mob had a hand in that assassination because it makes them look horrible. Government doesn't want anybody to know that.
What you're saying is, based on the stories I've read about you and what you're saying here in your testimony, is you're saying that you think the job was done internally, helped by some of your fellow Secret Service members. Is that what you're saying? Or
No,
you're saying they were
no.
loose and it caused other people to take action while they weren't really focused on protecting the president?
That's right. I think that the assassins, the people who planned the assassination, depended on the Secret Service
So that's communication
maintaining
out.
the same conduct that they maintained every day. They knew that the Secret Service would be ineffective.
Did they know that because there's a leak? Or did they know it because they were watching to know that these guys
They
are not
knew that
efficient?
they were watching.
So let me
because
ask
in
you-
every town that they went, they did the same thing. They went out drinking, hoeing, and
So they just watched their habits is what
Yeah.
they did. They watch it. So have you yourself, do you have an opinion yourself, having been involved in this closely at that time? Do you have an opinion of what happened?
yes, I have an opinion of what happened.
What do you
It's
think
exactly what military said. Is they shot him with a high-powered rifle, and they had Patsy all set up, who was Lee Harvey Oswald. I deeply believe that, and I hate to say it, that this thing, the assassination of the president, went to the highest position in our government, that there was a coup to take him out of power. Because not only was he hurting the Southerners, but him wanting to pull out of Vietnam and him wanting to go back to the standard as so far as the monetary system was concerned. All of these things would have severely crippled the money powers here in the United States, so he had to be eliminated.
How long has this been your opinion? How long has this been your thought process? Has it, because it's been many years, right? 50-something
Been
years.
many years.
So how long have you processed this? Has it ever changed, or you've had this position for how long?
The monetary position I've developed, I would say within the last 20 years.
Is it because you read the
Yes,
Jekyll
yes,
Island?
yes.
You
I read some things, but so far as the racial thing is concerned, and the hate for the president that the Southerners like Miltier had, I had that opinion right off for
Got
Jump Street the day he was assassinated. That Oswald was not the lone assassin.
I mean, he
I
died immediately.
never believed that.
He was set, right? I mean,
Yeah.
they didn't even let him live for him to be able to be questioned or anything.
Right.
So let me ask you this: when you go back and you think about that, if it's internal, what makes us think that can't happen again? I mean, you have an African American president becomes president, and he's pretty out there. He speaks there all the time. He's been safe. And you got Trump right now that is not necessarily the most, he is one of the most vocal people, whether it's using Twitter or whether it's doing what he's doing. There's a lot of people that don't like the way he's doing it. Maybe he is the complete opposite side of Kennedy. Let's just say Kennedy was doing what he was doing. He is pushing his agenda pretty aggressively. So he's also not going to make certain people happy. You think a part of that, the reason why that happened was because John F. Kennedy was pushing a little bit too much?
I think so, and I think in the case of Trump, there's nothing truly wrong with Trump, except that the old politicians, they can't trust him because they cannot predict him. He's unpredictable. And in order to be the president of the United States, you got to be able to take orders, and you must be predictable. He's not predictable. They got to know where you stand. John Kennedy was not predictable. That's the reason they blew his head off.
Yeah. So do you see some similarities
between
between the
Yes,
two?
I see some similarities. But they can kill a man in more ways than one. Than a bullet in the brain. They killed me for 60 years with a conviction. You see, they kill the body, but not the soul. And you can kill a man just by slander, confusing the public about his motivations, convictions, convicted people around him.
How do you think he's doing? How do you think Trump is doing? I mean, you've been around, you've been on the inside, you've seen a lot of things take place. We're living in a time right now where the media is, obviously we know the more divided America is, the more money the media makes. We just know that because it's like a boxing match.
Right.
Don King promotes fights, they hate each other, these guys don't like each other. We go by the pay-per-view and watch the fight and they cash in the checks, right? So MSNBC, Fox, CNN, whoever you want, Washington Post, New York Times, all these guys. There's a big division amongst America today that they're creating. Now, there's some data from Pew Research and other places that says America's more united than ever before. We actually have a lot more freedom and similarities today than we did before, but this campaign's being sold, right, on what's going on with America.
Right.
How do you think he's doing today?
I think that if left alone, that Trump would make a great president, but they're keeping him under so much pressure that he can't get his ship afloat. And that's being done because he is an independent thinker. He doesn't think along the lines of what's good for politics. I do believe that he has the interests of American people at heart.
You think
But
that?
what he needs is better advisors, because some of the thoughts that he has and the way he goes about them, the end product would be good, but the way he goes about it is not diplomatic. It is not within the train of thought or the methods, modes that a politician would take, the President of the United States. You see.
Could you be a little bit more specific with examples of that?
Yes, all right. You take, for instance, in North Korea, he contacts the North Korean president and he sets up a meeting. He doesn't go through diplomatic channels. He doesn't have the ambassador go over there and lay out this and lay out that. He says, we're going to meet. And so they go meet. You see what I'm saying? In Israel, he says...
And you don't think he should have done that? You think he should have used it?
I think he should have better advisors, because it makes it look like that he's just shooting from the hip when he's not.
Got it. So it shows that
not.
he is being methodical versus right now he's shooting from the hip, so
Right.
you don't know to be methodical or not.
Right. So you take the Palestinian-Israel peace process. He says we're going to have in Jerusalem, it's going to be the capital of Israel. Well, they've been batting this ball around for how many years? Since 1947. He says, okay, so we're going to make this step. He doesn't send an ambassador there. All he does, he said, this is what should be done. Now we're going to do it. But his advisors probably would have told him to take this step, and this step. And then in 2025, we'll be doing the same thing. President Trump gets things done. Another thing that I don't like about this, how the citizens treat Trump. We're talking about the presidency of the United States, not just the man. And the presidency of the United States, whoever holds that office, deserves a certain amount of respect. When we deny that respect to our top officials, we're finished. We just as finished as he is.
Why do you say that?
Because when we lose that type of respect, we have lost the respect for the top official of our government, and when the head dies, the body follows.
Got it.
We cannot, even though we may disagree with him, he is still the President of the United States of America. He is Mr. President, not liar, not stupid, he's not pathological. He is Mr. President until he leaves that office. I'm a firm believer in that. and we should respect him as such. And when he leaves the presidency, if he is guilty of any crime, that's the time to deal with it. But right now, he's Mr. President. If they bring charges against him to impeach him, he is Mr. President until he's convicted by the Senate.
It's going to be interesting to see what happens. You know, I've been here since 1990, and I've seen anything I've seen is from 1990 on till today. Obviously, prior to that, I lived in Germany and 10 years in Iran, and I saw when Iran had its own ruckus internally, and the revolution happened 78. You probably remember the 78 revolution in Iran.
Yes, I remember.
When they had their fall and there was an exile. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. So going back to the Kennedy story, John F. Kennedy's story is, so you don't have a specific name or an individual. You just think your opinion was the man of power at the top were so worried about the moves he was going to make that it was going to affect their pockets that they took a move to make sure he was gone, to get rid of him. But you don't know specifically a name or an organization.
Well, no, I don't know a specific organization except the DRE, who had this Homer Severe, said the president was about to be assassinated, and he in fact was assassinated a few weeks later. How did he have the information? And why didn't the Warren Commission interview this guy? I tell you why. Because the Secret Service in Chicago falsified reports, changed dates on the reports of the investigation, according to, as referring to Echeverria. And they backdated reports, front-dated reports. They covered the whole thing up. Why? Why? If there was no conspiracy, why? The Warren Commission did not call Homer Echeverria. They didn't talk to Miltier. Why? These are people that we had evidence had said from their own mouth that the president was going to be assassinated.
One could say it's one of two things. It's either being sloppy or irresponsible, or looking the other way, right? I mean, that's really the only...
They couldn't be that sloppy and irresponsible. That was a cover-up.
Then it's a cover-up. Then it's looking the other way to allow it to happen.
No question about it.
So who became...
Katzenbach, who was the Associate Attorney General, who took over the Attorney Generalship after the president was assassinated and Bobby Kennedy went on leave. On December the 6th, he wrote a memo to Bill Moyers, who was one of President Johnson's aides, and said that we have to find Lee Harvey Oswald as being the assassin of President John F. Kennedy. So what was the Warren Commission all about? An investigator goes out, now here's a memo, I have a copy of that memo, that I don't know how they got a copy of it, but I have a copy of it from Mayor Farrell.
So this leads to one place. So specific, you don't, but you kind of have an idea of what happened because the organization intentionally looked the other way, and the blame became Oswald. You know, here's who's a person that had some issues, and he decided to do this, and because he was in love with, you know, such and such person. I've read so many different things about him. He had apparently an infatuation about an actress as well. It's Michelle Pfeiffer, I think it was. It's very, very strange stories I hear about him. So how much, for somebody that went through what you went through, because of that you went in the time, because of that your life changed. I mean, because of that you could have been somebody being an agent for 30 years and you know, all of a sudden your life changes and you have to go and figure out a way to change your career early on, right? So what is your level of trust today in the Secret Service organization or the FBI or the, you know, those two organizations? How do you feel about them? Do you think they have the best interest of America in mind, or do you think it's still a lot of power plays taking place?
Yes, I think that the FBI and both Secret Service. I just have a feeling that the Kennedy assassination taught them a lot. They gained a lot from that.
Got it.
And I think that the agents are, even though they did a few things in Barcelona, you know, they went over and got to drinking, they found an agent drunk in front of a hotel room. Another agent lost his commission book, and a lot of things happened since that time. I think that they're a much better organization because of the mistakes that they made, and also the FBI, because they know that their existence is on the line. Their very existence is on the line.
So they're better at protecting the president today than ever before.
Oh, yes.
So your confidence in knowing that to
Yeah.
do what they did to Kennedy today to Trump, it's going to take a lot because they're more prolific, more technology, more accountability than ever before.
Right, that's right.
Got it.
You're familiar with my case. I don't know if you're familiar with the fact that the chief witness against me admitted that he set up the whole case with another ex-convict. You're familiar
But they
with
didn't
that?
look at that. They didn't even want to look
No,
at it.
they didn't look
Yeah,
at that.
I saw that.
And he admitted to perjury.
Mm-hmm.
And when they sent me to Springfield after me being in Fort Leavenworth and Terre Haute, Indiana, federal prison, they tried to declare me insane. Yeah, they
What
came
year
and
is
got
that?
me 3 o'clock in the morning on July the 6th of 1967. They came and got me from my bunk at 3 o'clock in the morning, marched me
Wow.
over to 2-1 East. It's for the psychotic and the incurably insane. Now, do I look like I'm incurably insane to you?
I know very few people that remember dates as good as I do, and I think you got me beat. Your memory with dates, the way you recite them, is absolutely impressive. And what's even more impressive, somebody watching this doesn't know where you are politically. Because back there you have something of a Barack Obama. You just gave credit to Trump. Then you said you didn't trust what the Secret Service organization did back then because of what that gentleman called you, multiple times.
Right.
You know the word. And then I come back and I ask you a question about Secret Service and FBI. Do you trust them today? You not once took a shot at them, and you gave them credit that they're doing a good job today because they learned from John F. Kennedy. No, there is nothing from you that is emotionally so angry at something that you're willing to throw everybody under the bus. Very stable on everything that you're saying. It's a very proper processing that you're doing. So you're not over promoting or selling an event that took place. And so that's what makes it very trusting. Now, obviously, a lot of your friends and family know what happened wasn't true, but it still doesn't mean that it didn't hurt you, help your career. It hurt your career.
That's right.
You could have been a serviceman for a long time and had a prolific career helping out other assignments you could have had. So how much progress do you think we made as a country when it comes down to racism?
How much progress do I think we made?
Have we made?
No.
You don't think?
No.
You think it's as bad today as it was in
It's
1960?
It's worse.
You think so?
You know why it's
Tell
worse?
me why.
Because people think it's getting better. It's not. Racism can only be cured in the heart, not by law. Right now, people are depending on the law to make you treat me right. When I say you, I mean plural. But the law cannot do that. Only the Spirit of the eternal God. You see, I love everybody. And that is the key. We have to learn to love instead of hate.
You got an interesting story. You got an interesting story, to say the least. I mean, that's a very, very interesting story. I'm glad we made the time and you opened your home to us for us to come out here and visit you. And this was great for you to share your testimony, your story. We're going to leave the link below of the book in the description section for you to find it. And if you're watching this interview, you've never seen the interview with Clint Hill, if the topic of JFK assassination interests you, click on the link right over here to watch the JFK assassination interview with Clint Hill that I did a year and a half ago. It gets also deep into the events that took place with the assassination. Sir, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for coming. I appreciate it very
you.
much.
Thank you so much.
I appreciate it.
Truly. Thank you.
Peace and love to everyone.